In this video, we'll be taking a deeper look into the preferences that are available in this Midas Pro 3. The way to access preferences is pressing the monitor/preferences button twice. You can also go to the top left corner of this either screen and go down to preferences. The first tab here is configuration. One of the most important things to do is to make sure that your snake between the Surface and the DL371 is configured properly. If you're using a copper Cat 5/6 cabling, you want to select copper. By default, it comes with fiber, so make sure that you select copper, otherwise you won't be able to communicate with the 371 unless you choose copper. Here is also where you choose the iPad control server. The Surface has a capability to allow an iPad to control almost all of these functions from an iPad. So this is where you would set an IP address for that, give a name to the console. So once you've done that, you press start and it starts talking to your network and broadcasting that. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like this functionality works in version 2.3.1 build 40. I haven't been able to get it to work. Let's see, on the Show tab here, this is where we can select our balance between graphic EQs and effects, which were reviewed in the last video. So we can go from 1 effect and 28 graphic EQs down to 6 effects and 8 graphic EQs. Here's also where we select what kind of surround mode we're going to use, if we're going to use one, and whether we want to include patching as part of our automation. Under the User tab, we just have User Preferences. Displaying rotary values shows you the value of a control when you touch it on the screen. Fast Zone Delay Control allows the gain swap button to add an additional control to the gain trim that's at the top of each channel. Instead of going between stage box gain and digital trim, it'll also include the delay for that input. Input select follows solo. So if you solo a channel, that channel also becomes selected. Output, same thing for an output. If you solo an output, it will also select that output. Automate paging is an interesting feature that's available. If you save a scene, it will also save what you're looking at on the Surface instead of just the settings. So if you have a scene that you want to program, I'm planning to do this for my situation, planning to program a very simple set of controls for inexperienced operators where they'll be able to load a scene and just see the controls that I've saved and preset for them to see. Touch navigation of detail area allows you to navigate through the detail area just by touching a control. So when I touch the EQ, the screen automatically switches to EQ. When I touch the compressor controls, I see the compressor on the screen. When I touch the stage box gain, I'll see that instantly. So that helps to navigate the area quicker. The next option is use global meters pre as global tap. And what that does is it allows me to use this global meters pre button to set my tap tempo. And the tap tempo can be utilized for a delay control. The next option is flash global tap continuously. If I check that box, my tap tempo will continuously flash here to remind me of what my tempo is set to. Collapsed flip mode is if you're using fader flip mode, only the channels that are contributing to that aux send or matrix send will show up on the control surface. Here is fader flip mode, where you get to select whether you want to flip to the pan control at the top of the input or to the fader of the input. VCA unfolding overlay stereo pairs is pretty clear. If you have stereo pairs that are in a VCA, instead of taking up 2 of the fader controls, it'll take up 1, and it will use the label from the left input. Here we have some controls of what the meters look like on screen. The only one that affects the meters that are physically on the board is the meter decay. The other 3 are for the meters that are on the GUI itself. We also have some controls for the brightness of the screens, the contrast of the screen, the light bar that's located here in this little gap above the screens, and we can control the brightness of the LEDs that are on the console. So we have solo LEDs that we can turn up and down, which include the mute LEDs. We can turn on and off or anywhere in between the meters, and then other LEDs which just so happens to include all of the blue lighting, which shows you what's selected. So make sure you don't turn that one down, otherwise you'll get pretty confused about what's going on. You can see all of the lights have disappeared. Turn that one right back up. And then here at the bottom we have quick keys. This is a really interesting feature that was added in a later version of the software. It adds the advanced navigation features to the console. The way we access those is if we hold this asterisk on the channel select. We hold that down for a few seconds and we get the 3 advanced navigation modes, and we get a home button. A home button is what's really missing on this console, which allows the screens to return to their home setting. So if I press home, you see that returns to the metering screen that you normally see. We'll go over these in a little bit later. Let's go back here to preferences. The next tab here is linking. Here is where you can select what a link does between input channels, aux returns, aux sends, matrices, and masters, whether the mutes are linked together, whether the EQs or the sends. All those details can be selected here. You also have the option to replace any existing linking settings that you have, which is also helpful if you've linked something and you don't remember, or you want to replace all of your existing links without going to each of the links and changing the settings. And the last one here, the last tab, is delay compensation, which is where you can select if the console will delay all of the audio so that it comes out in sync with the audio that's been processed. Any audio that gets processed through the effects processor or through an external send and return is obviously delayed because of the electrical path that it must take. So the audio that goes straight through needs to be delayed slightly so that the audio being processed comes out at the same time. This can cause some issues. I have not had a chance to really experiment with it to see whether the front of house mix preset delays it significantly enough for it to bother me. If anything, I'll probably end up using the front of house low latency mix, which disables some of the delays on some of those options. So that's our look at preferences. I hope that was helpful in understanding the advanced preferences that are available in this console. I'll see you in the next video.